The news told you Iran was finished. No navy, no air force, the nuclear sites gone. The missile launches down 92% from day one. Trump stood in front of the cameras and said the words, functionally destroyed. And here's what's strange about all of that. Most of it is accurate. But here's what nobody is saying out loud. What the briefings contain that the press conferences don't. There is one weapon on this list that the United States has never intercepted. Not in any test environment, not in any exchange, not in any phase of this conflict. And Iran hasn't used it yet. 7 weapons. We're counting down, from least to most dangerous. By the time we get to number 1, you'll understand why the analysts reading the classified assessments aren't sleeping easy, even while the missile fire is collapsing in the public numbers. And if you're watching this for the first time, this is what we do here. No noise, no hot takes, dressed up as expertise, just the weapons, the numbers, and what they actually mean. Subscribe and hit the bell. This story is nowhere near over. Let's get into it. Number 7, the Shade drone. You know this weapon. Iran's Delta Wing kamikaze drone, the one it shipped to Russia by the thousands during Ukraine, the one that flew into Kiev in swarms of 100, the one it launched in waves in the opening days of epic fury. The White House said drone attacks are down 95% since the conflict started, and when you hear that number, 95%, it sounds like the threat evaporated. It didn't. Here's the math they're not putting on screen. Iran launched approximately 3,500 Shaheds in the first 5 days of epic fury alone. Down 95% from that peak is still dozens per day, still active, still in the air. And the Shahed is not a sophisticated manufacturing problem. Gary Samore, director of the Crown Center for Middle East Studies at Brandeis University, said it plainly. These drones can be built from commercially available components, in a warehouse, in a garage. The production isn't centralized enough to destroy from the air because there's no single target to destroy. But the drone itself isn't the real problem. The real problem is the math on the other side. Each Shahed costs a few $1,000s to produce. Each interceptor fired at one, depending on the system, costs between $80,000 and several million. The Council on Foreign Relations published this math directly. And it doesn't resolve in the defender's favor. Iran doesn't need to win the drone war. It doesn't need to hit anything critical. It just needs to keep forcing interceptors into the air until the stockpile gets thin. The fire rate dropped. The logic behind the strategy didn't. Number 6, the underground missile cities. CENTCOM and the IDF have been citing the same statistic. Over 60% of Iran's missile launchers have been destroyed or damaged. Sit with that number for a second and then read it differently. 60% destroyed. That means 40% is still there. Iran has at least 5 known underground missile complexes, what Iranian state media calls missile cities, in Kermanshah, Semnan, and along the Gulf region. And these are not concrete bunkers. These are industrial facilities carved into mountains. Tunnels wide enough for mobile transporter erector launchers to drive in, arm a missile, fire through an opening in the rock face, and drive deeper before a counter-battery radar can even complete its track. They were built specifically to survive sustained precision bombing. That's not speculation. That's the stated design requirement. And the strikes conducted so far haven't changed that engineering reality. What the Institute for the Study of War put into one of their assessments, something that didn't get much coverage, is this. Iran appears to have been burning through its older, more visible inventory first. Liquid fuel systems. Launchers that require 30 to 60 minutes of preparation. Systems that are visible from satellite during the fueling sequence. Those are what went in volume in the first phase. The launchers being destroyed in the public kill counts are the ones that were easiest to see. The ones inside the mountain, still there. Number 5, what's left in the ballistic missile arsenal. Before the conflict, Israeli military intelligence estimated Iran had rebuilt its ballistic missile stockpile to approximately 2,500 missiles, almost back to pre-June 2025 war levels. By day 10 of epic fury, estimates suggested around 2,400 had been fired, nearly empty, effectively exhausted. That's the read. Now add the next layer. The Jerusalem Post, citing Israeli military assessments, reported that Iran still maintains between 100 and 200 active launchers. And on March 21st, the same day this video was produced, the IRGC Aerospace Force spokesman made a public statement. Iran is producing missiles even during war conditions, which is amazing, and there is no particular problem in stockpiling. Call it propaganda if you want. The Atlantic Council's analyst Plitzes estimated Iran's missile production capacity dropped from approximately 300 missiles per month before the war to roughly 40 per month now. Significantly degraded, but 40 per month. While the war is running, while the airstrikes continue. They entered the conflict with 2,500, fired almost all of them, have been rebuilding production capacity since the June 2025 ceasefire, and nothing in the current air campaign has shut down every production line that survived the initial strikes. The stockpile isn't empty, it's being refilled. Number 4. The naval mine. This is the weapon that almost nobody is covering seriously, and it might be the most strategically significant item on this entire list. CBS News has placed Iran's naval mine stockpile somewhere between 2,000 and 6,000 mines. Same reporting noted this: approximately 90% of Iran's mine-laying capacity is still intact. Let that land. The US and its coalition partners have destroyed Iran's conventional navy, its air force, its nuclear infrastructure, its missile sites, and 9 out of every 10 boats capable of laying a mine in the Strait of Hormuz are still operational. The Strait of Hormuz is 55 kilometers at its narrowest point. Through that channel moves approximately 20% of the world's entire oil supply every day. And a mine-laying operation doesn't require aircraft, doesn't require a launch facility, doesn't require anything that shows up cleanly on satellite imagery. It requires small boats, darkness, and patience. Since the conflict began, Lloyd's List has tracked more than 20 shipping-related incidents in the Gulf region. Maersk, one of the world's largest shipping operators, has already suspended all vessel crossings through the strait. War risk insurance premiums for tankers have spiked to levels that are actively reshaping global energy markets. And the strait isn't formally mined, hasn't been mined at all yet. It doesn't need to be. The threat alone is doing the work. Iran understands that. The mine as a weapon of economic warfare isn't theoretical. It's already active without a single mine in the water. Drop it in the comments. Do you think Iran actually mines the strait before this conflict ends? And if this breakdown is giving you the analysis the news isn't, subscribe. The next 3 weapons are where this gets serious. Number 3. The drone boat. March 1st, 2026. An Iranian unmanned surface vehicle, an explosive-laden autonomous boat, struck the Marshall Islands flagged tanker, MKD Vium, in the Gulf of Oman. That was the first confirmed state-directed deployment of explosive drone boats against commercial shipping in history. Not a precedent, a first. And these are not fast attack boats with IRGC sailors on board. They're autonomous, pre-programmed, low radar signature. Cameron Chell, CEO of defense technology company Dragonfly, described how these systems operate. One operator, a swarm of 10 boats, acting with a high level of autonomous targeting logic that's already built into the system before launch. The human is not in the loop once they're in the water. They already know what they're looking for. A boat-sized surface object is one of the most difficult targets for naval defense systems to engage cleanly. Too small for most radar systems to track effectively at range, too slow to trigger certain automated threat detection thresholds that are calibrated for faster inbound weapons. And it doesn't launch from a facility. It launches from a beach, a dock, a vessel that looks indistinguishable from civilian maritime traffic until it makes its final approach. Iran has deployed these in the Strait of Hormuz, the Gulf of Oman, and the broader Arabian Gulf. One already hit a tanker. The rest are still out there, in the water, right now. Number 2. The missiles they've been protecting. This is where most coverage stops being useful, because reporting that treats Iran's missile arsenal as a single category is missing the most important distinction in this entire conflict. Not all missiles are the same weapon, and Iran has been spending one type to protect another. The liquid fuel systems, the Shahab-3, the Ghadr, the Ahmad, the Khorramshahr. These require 30 to 60 minutes of fueling before they can fire. During that preparation window, they're stationary, generating heat signatures, trackable, targetable. These are the systems Iran burned through in the opening phase of Epic Fury. These are the launchers appearing in the CENTCOM kill counts. These are the missiles you've been watching on the news, The solid fuel systems are a fundamentally different calculation. The Sejil, the Khaybar Shekan, the Hajj Qasim, no fueling sequence. The propellant is already inside. Transport, erect, fire, in minutes, not hours. By the time a satellite or ISR aircraft detects the launcher, transmits targeting data through the kill chain, and a strike platform delivers a weapon, the missile is already in the air. The launcher has moved. The window is gone. The Institute for the Study of War assessed this directly. Iran was deliberately holding its solid fuel inventory in reserve during the high-volume opening phase, burning the old, visible, vulnerable stockpile first, protecting the systems that are hardest to find, hardest to preempt, and hardest to intercept once airborne. JINSA, the Jewish Institute for National Security of America, assessed that Iran's solid-fuel ballistic missile force retains what they specifically called significant residual capacity, even after the strikes conducted so far. Significant residual capacity, after everything you've seen on the news. The missiles that were designed to survive this phase of the war, still there, still armed, still waiting. Number 1. The Fatah. Iran unveiled the Fatah 1 in 2023, described it as its first domestically produced hypersonic missile. Western analysts were skeptical. Fair enough, Iran has a history of overstating weapons capabilities. Then, in 2026, Iran claimed to have deployed a second variant, the Fatah 2. And this one is described differently. Not just a fast missile, a hypersonic glide vehicle, a weapon that maneuvers through the atmosphere at 15 times the speed of sound, changing its trajectory on the way to the target. Western analysts have pushed back on the full claim. The prevailing assessment is that Iran may be using older ballistic missiles upgraded with maneuverable re-entry vehicles rather than true hypersonic glide technology in the strictest technical definition. But here is what Behnam Ben Taleblu, senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, said about it. While Iran previously tried to pass along a maneuvering re-entry vehicle as a hypersonic ballistic missile, the move toward developing a hypersonic glide vehicle should not be ignored. Should not be ignored. Understand what maneuverability does to missile defense. A standard ballistic missile follows a predictable arc. Defense systems, Patriot, THAAD, Arrow 3, are built around computing that arc. They calculate where the missile will be at the intercept point, and they put a kill vehicle there. The entire defensive architecture assumes the missile goes where physics says it should go. A maneuvering warhead breaks that assumption. The trajectory changes mid-flight. The defense system has to generate a new fire control solution in real time, with less warning, against a target that is actively working against the intercept. The engagement window shrinks. The probability of a clean kill drops. The Institute for the Study of War assessed that the Fatah series was being held in reserve throughout Epic Fury's high-volume opening phase, consistent with a doctrine of preserving the most capable rounds for a later phase, specifically when interceptor stockpiles are depleted and layered defense architecture is under greater stress. In other words, Iran isn't saving the Fatah because it's afraid to use it. Iran is saving the Fatah for the moment when using it costs the least and damages the most. And here's the line that should stay with you. The United States has never intercepted a Fatah, not in any test scenario, not in any live exchange, not in any phase of Epic Fury. They haven't used it yet. That means US and Israeli defense systems have never had to defeat it. Nobody knows, not publicly, not in the open source record, whether they can. That is not a minor detail. That is the central strategic uncertainty of this entire conflict. So here's where that leaves us. The news gave you a clean story. Iran finished, arsenal exhausted, missile fire down 92%, Navy gone, Air Force gone. And the clean story is mostly true. What the clean story leaves out, the Shahed is still being built in facilities that don't appear on targeting lists. The underground cities are still inside their mountains. The solid fuel missiles, the ones designed to survive exactly this kind of campaign, are still in reserve. 90% of the mine-laying capacity hasn't been touched. There's a drone boat that already hit a tanker, and the rest are still in the water. And the one weapon on this list that was specifically engineered to defeat the interceptors being used against Iran right now hasn't been fired once. The war looks finished from the outside. From the inside of the classified briefing, it looks like a conflict where the most dangerous phase hasn't started yet. That's the part nobody's saying out loud. Tell me in the comments which of these 7 you think gets used next, and whether you think the US is ready for it when it does. And if this is the kind of analysis you've been looking for, the real numbers, the real weapons, no spin, subscribe. New video every week. Next one covers the full picture of what China is watching, learning, and building for Taiwan while all of this plays out in the Gulf.